This is our 1925 Locomobile Model 48 Sportif. So I've heard that this car is the American Mercedes.
It did acquire that nickname, yes. This is a very solid, high-end car, very heavy, very well built. It's a luxury car.
Powerful car, premium car. Got to have a premium price tag. So what
Yes.
what kind of figures are we talking here?
They were only producing up to 4 cars a day at the Locomobile plant, and they were selling for between about $7,400 and over $10,000.
Well, I know that a house at the time was like, I think I saw the average was somewhere around $6,000 in the 1920s.
And there were places where you could get them for a lot cheaper than that.
You know, would you rather own a Locomobile or a house? I don't know.
You could live in the Locomobile.
She looks pretty nice. A little bit of a mobile palace over there.
Locomobile home.
This particular Locomobile is an internal combustion engine, but I know that the company really got its start in steam engines.
That's right, it has its roots in steam. John Walker actually purchased the manufacturing rights of what had been the Stanley steamer, and he produced it as the Locomobile.
Oh, well, the Stanley steamer that's over there?
That we actually have in our museum as we have a Stanley steamer. He manufactured his first gasoline car in 1902, and in 1904 they phased out the steam cars.
So what kind of power are we talking about?
It has a 525 cubic inch flathead 6. The engine was designed in 1911 along with the first car. At that time it was producing 48 horsepower. That's where I got the name Model 48.
That makes sense.
By 1925 it's putting out 100 horsepower. That more than doubled the output of the engine.
A lot of horses.
It's a lot of horses for a lot of weight.
So what kind of metals did they use in the production of this car?
Chrome steel, cobalt steel, a lot of aluminum. Locomobile was a pioneer of the use of aluminum in cars.
Was there a particular advantage to using aluminum? Was it the weight or what was the...
There are a number of different things depending on the application, including heat transfer, and mass translates to luxury and smoothness.
Okay, so how heavy are we talking with this car?
It's a 5,300 pound car.
Yeah, well, I mean, she looks sturdy.
It is sturdy. If you look underneath it, it looks like a dump truck under there.
Kind of like my booty. The Locomobile Model 48 had some pretty famous owners back in the day. William Wrigley, the chewing gum tycoon, and William Carnegie. Charlie Chaplin had a 1920 Locomobile 48 Sportif, very similar to our car. Even the Vanderbilt family had one in their collection. In F. Scott Fitzgerald's first novel, This Side of Paradise, the book ends with an argument about socialism versus capitalism that happens inside a Locomobile. Speaking of owning, I know that our Locomobile was at one point part of the Barney Pollard collection.
Yes.
He was a businessman out of Detroit selling building materials. Saw his grandson had quoted that at one point he owned 1,200 cars, this one being one of them. What would he do with all of those cars?
Well, he saved a lot of antique cars from going under the axe during World War II when they were being gathered up for scrap.
And then I also know that is why, you know, despite them making the Locomobiles for a dozen years or more, the survival rate's really low because of the premium materials and metals that they used in these cars. How did he store these cars?
Well, he wanted to keep them out of sight and in a minimal amount of room, so he actually stood them on end, stacked them in like vertical cordwood.
Little sardine can action going on in there. Okay, very cool.
Sardines on end.
It seems like they were able to, you know, obviously keep their business afloat and sell this model enough to keep producing it, despite the fact that it has a dated design for 1925.
Possibly even because of that, because it was a conservative design. And it had some bells and whistles. It was one of the first ones to offer pressurized lubrication back in 1911 for the engine. It has adjustable shock absorbers. It has some features.
You can see that there's a lot of shiny metal on the front here. So what are we looking at?
We're looking at the case of the headlights and this crossbar. This is nickel plating. It's very beautiful. All kinds of metal here. And of course, the body panels, most of them, the fenders, the hood here, those are steel. The shiny portions of the body panels, those are unpainted aluminum. That's how it came from the factory. And of course, everything that's red is steel, very heavy gauge steel. Hey, Dan, let's take a look inside this car.
Oh, they're actually letting me in a car.
Come on in, yeah.
Oh, goody.
Sink down into that seat.
Oh. Ooh, that's posh.
Kind of cushy, isn't it?
Yeah, that feels good.
It does.
But I'm noticing there's not as much space up here as maybe in the back seat.
Well, it didn't need a lot of space up here.
I guess,
The chauffeur doesn't take up a lot of room.
ooh, I get my own chauffeur.
Many of these cars would have been chauffeur driven.
Okay.
The room was important in the back. That's where you wanted the room.
Oh yeah, that looks like a lot more leg room.
Oh,
All right.
here we are in the back seat.
And boy, is it, it's a lot comfier back
What do
here,
you
know, I
think?
gotta say.
It is.
You got more headroom, I got more leg room, I got this fancy little footrest here.
It's pretty cushy in the back seat here.
This is really nice, and this is a very nice windshield.
It's actually articulated. We can bring that back if
Whoa.
your hair's getting blown around by the breeze a little bit.
Looking at the instrument panel, I understand most of what I'm seeing here,
Pretty conventional layout.
but I'm noticing a knob over there.
You don't see this on all cars. This is actually an air pump. Pressurizes air in the fuel tank, which causes gas to move up to the carburetor for initial starting.
Oh, very cool.
Once the engine starts, the air compressor takes over and does that job.
Very fancy.
It has a manual transmission, conventional H pattern, handbrake over here, the usual things on the steering quadrant, the throttle, the hand throttle, and the spark advance.
That seems more complicated than my little brain can figure out how to drive. Automatic is my friend. Thank you for being my chauffeur.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Seeing as I love making these videos, but I don't know how to drive that stick. And these cars are too expensive for me to learn on. And what does the spark knob do?
Modern cars advance and retard the spark automatically. But back then you had to do it yourself. Do you notice how much softer this car rides than, say, the Argon?
Yeah.
The Argon has a more sporty ride.
Especially once it gets up on step and it's going, it just cruises. I mean, it is buttery smooth.
And it has a nice tone. It's a nice sounding car.
And as long as we're not dragging the clutch, it sounds great.
And if you wanted to mount an expedition into the Gobi Desert, this is the car you'd want to take along.
All right. So if you were trying to relive Indiana Jones from the heyday, this would be the car you would want. I know celebrities love the Locomobile. I know we had Babe Ruth in one of these.
The Bambino did own one of these.
The Sultan of the
SWAT.
The Sultan of SWAT.
That's the fella. You can just see him behind the wheel of his Locomobile.
You know, we're lucky this Locomobile survived because I know there was a warehouse fire and a bunch of them burned down. It's really sad.
There have been a lot of sad episodes in the history of the automobile and its attempt at preservation.
The Locomobile Society estimates that there are only about 167 Model 48s still in existence, one of which is right here at the Fountainhead Antique Auto Museum, so you should come on in and check it out. Step into a place where every car has a story to tell here at the Fountainhead Antique Auto Museum. Comment, like, and subscribe. We got a lot of stuff coming to you. We'll see you soon.